Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Billy Earl, and this is Eastern Shore Politics. We have an election coming up. This is a mayoral race. There are councilmen that are running, but we are very, very happy to have two of the mayoral candidates here today. We have Jermichael Mitchell, who has joined us, and we have Randy Taylor, who is also running. There was a third candidate, but they did not respond, so we're just moving ahead. Thank you very much. What we're going to talk about today is some of the major issues that are facing the people that are running for mayor of Salisbury. We are a small town. On the other hand, we have some big town problems. And so what we're going to do is delve into the minds of these gentlemen who are brave enough to enter the public life and want to do best for their city. The first subject I'd like to talk about is the tax differential. To put it in layman's terms, what happens is the fire and the police force of Salisbury leave the jurisdiction on a consistent basis to help the county. The county has been asked to reciprocate by sending money to help pay for these services. They're hesitating in doing it, and whoever the next mayor is, there needs to be some sort of approach with the people in county government and make this a team effort and not just Salisbury. Let's turn to Jermichael first. Tell me about your thoughts on this subject, Jermichael.
So it's been a problem for a very long time. There hasn't been a great working relationship between the city and the county.
Amen.
I would say they've had their differences since Mr. Bob Culver, God rest his soul, was involved. I believe that we would have to start off by building a better relationship first. Before you can sit down and have great conversation about things that have been a problem, you have to build a good relationship with those people who are involved. As you can already see that our county executive and our county council are having big time issues right now. A case being brought about where they're suing about hiring some people.
Yes.
So it would just be sitting down formulating relationships. The biggest problem again is we take tons of calls as city firefighters in the county area. And we truly feel like it's not reciprocated as far as them giving the funds for the services. In order for us to continue to give those services, we have to strike some sort of deal between each other to really make sure that our fire services are protected, they're truly being benefit, and we're paying for the cost of things. There's a cost that comes to the city for supplies, there's a cost for different vehicles and things of that nature.
No, it's not cheap.
Yeah, not cheap at all. You know, I heard about how much one of those fire engines cost itself, and that's a tremendous amount of money to the city. So the county has to pull their weight, especially if we're going to continue to respond to those calls, because then you come into a place where county residents are relying on services that may not come, right? And if when we don't respond to those fires, then you're looking at lawsuits, and you're looking at different things now that are going to roll down and roll through because we don't have a good working relationship. You have to start not worrying about what your politics are, whether you're red or blue or any of those things, and we have to start sitting down with competence. Competent people sitting down making good decisions for the betterment of our government, locally and countywide.
Has anybody ever done a study to look at the amount of money that we're talking about?
So they do have some statistics. It was actually in one of the agendas for the city council when it was talked about, some statistics of how many times we make those calls, how much money is actually spent going into the county. So they do have some numbers, but it just was that the county execs, at that time we were going through a county exec election. It's just that every time it's come to the table, we cannot agree on how much money the county should be giving back to the city.
Right.
And that's the hardest piece, right? Coming up with what that number should look like. But I think when you sit down, again, with competent people, and you look at the amount of calls that we go out to, when you look at the amount of gas and all of those different things that truly need to be looked at to go to those calls, then you can come down with a reasonable number that the county could give us to the city towards us keeping those services going.
Have they ever said why they're not willing to fulfill that obligation?
I believe they feel like we make more calls in the city, which we do. I was about to say, like, I think that's, but when you talk about that, you say, of course, right? Common sense is, of course, it's a city resource.
Yeah.
It's supposed to make more calls in the city. So they don't feel as though we make enough calls in the county for them to cover more calls. And then again, you know about the deals that probably were brokered before. It's probably somewhere in those contracts of deals that they start. But again, when gas going up, supplies have gone up. You know, after COVID-19, tons of things have went up. So we just have to relook at those contracts, relook at those things, and see how we can move forward.
Gotcha. Randy, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. There's the tax differential, and we're talking about the fire agreement. The last study, or the only study that I'm aware of, that was done on the tax differential was done in 2008.
That's right.
But it provided a framework. I think it's got to be. It's a little bit old. It's about 15 years old, or that is 17 years old. but it will provide a framework to have that discussion now in terms of how they calculated the differential. My take on why it's taken so long, or why it's existed for so long, I have no idea. I mean, it seems to me every year that goes by that we don't establish a deal, we're just giving up money.
It's perplexing, isn't it?
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much. I've had very preliminary conversations, rudimentary, with folks inside the city, inside the county, that, I think there's a deal there, and I think it's just a matter of sitting down with all the players in the room, the stakeholders of, what's involved. On the fire agreement side, they've got a formula for ambulance calls, for transport, non-transport, which is a calculation. It's more objective than subjective. There's some debate as to how, do they need 2 fire? Was there a duplicate call from Hebron as well as Salisbury in the county? That sort of stuff. So we would have to, call through all the numbers. But again, that's a decision. That's something we can negotiate. There's other components of things like, for example, the disparity grant that the state gives. That's $15 million worth of money that comes to the county that the city never participates in. It's based on based on average incomes. Of $75,000, they give you a disparity grant. Well, most of the people that are modest income live in Salisbury.
Right.
Most of the wealthier people live towards the county. We would be entitled theoretically to almost $5 million of that disparity grant, theoretically. So
wow, I
again,
didn't realize that.
So there's a whole bunch of things that we need to first, like Jermichael said, we need to get into a better place in terms of our relationship with the county. Realize we're all part of the same county, even though we're in the city. Start rowing in the same direction and try and strike a deal that works for everybody.
Okay, let's stay pretty much on topic here. How are we going to repair the relationship between the county and the city? They both have positions. They both have political elements that they're going to take into consideration. But what would you see as the primary steps to set up a framework for this discussion to take place?
I think the primary steps are, one, we have to keep hoping that the county solves their own issues. Right? It's just one of those things. If the county exec and the county council don't agree on things already, well, it's no need to get to the table and we still continue to not agree on things. So we have to continue to pray that they get on one accord first. That's going to be very big in that discussion. And then I think the second piece in that discussion is truly, again, and I can't say it enough, I say it all the time everywhere we've been, is the competence piece. Stepping outside of yourself and knowing that who you're serving. You're not serving self. You're not serving your democratical positions. You're not serving whoever your party is. That's not who you're serving at. You're serving the people of Salisbury. Mm-hmm. You're serving the people of Wacomico County. And when you put that first, it's easy to step outside of yourself and make competent decisions. We have to make sure that we have something in place to save people's lives. There should be no argument amongst that. We should definitely be looking for the best deal to make that happen.
Is the common opinion that this would be mayor and county exec?
I believe that it would be.
Or maybe a task force?
But I believe it would be mayor and county exec first, and then bringing that to a group of people who can look at it, vet it, and then sitting down with both councils. Because again, the mayor and the county exec don't make decisions by themselves, right?
No.
They have to be voted upon.
Yeah, I think it starts there, certainly. And I think you could probably do like a representative membership from the council and a representative membership from the county and city, and all sit in a room and say, look, we're going to live by the agreement we come to.
Right.
And that everyone's going to vote to concur. Because it needs to be settled. It needs to be settled, for sure.
How fraught is the relationship between the council, these two councils right now?
I think the councils get along. To be honest,
That's good
I
news.
really think the councils get along. From my understanding in the places that I've been, I see different council members from both talking to each other, mixing it, things of that nature. I just think at times before, before it was the county exec and the mayor who just didn't get along.
I remember those.
They just didn't get along. They had a lot to say about each other. But I believe the councils definitely get along. So again, that prayer is more or less now, we just have to work, whatever that is going on the county side of things when it comes to the county council and the county exec, we have to work that out. And then of course, we have the mayor thing. So once someone is put in place with the mayor situation and the new city council members, if some new people come along, because again, when you're voting for new people, new opinions come involved with that as
Always.
well. So we have to deal with that as well. We have to get through this election, see who's in place, and try to work out some good things.
Okay. So movement towards the council by the city council. Once that's set up, and once there's, let's say, a task force, let's say it ultimately ends up in that, the amount of money is going to be the important question, but isn't it really going to be the voters who are going to look at this and say, if I live slightly outside the city and I have a health problem, I have a fire on the house, I have to have my back covered by the city in many cases. Where does the voter play a role in this, or do they?
I believe they do. Again, I believe the voter always plays a role, right? Because again, we're spending tax-paying dollars, right? So the voter always plays a role. But it's voters of everyone now, though, right? Because
everybody.
Because now it's the county and the city. Salisbury is the biggest city on the Eastern Shore.
Yeah.
There's no way we should be having these problems. There's no way we shouldn't be working on these deals. I really feel like we have to hash this out and set an example. That's been the biggest problem for a long time now with these quarrels, is we're setting a bad example for the other smaller towns around us. We should be leading by example, and we should get this deal done.
Yeah, one of the challenges, I think, is probably that whatever dollars they give up have already been committed within the context of their current budget. That's the big thing.
I hear you, yeah.
So maybe part of the negotiation, the task force, is to do some sort of a acceleration part where it's X in the first year, X plus in the next year. So
and it ratchets up.
So they have time to make adjustments on their end as we make adjustments, obviously on our end. But listen, one of the things I bring to the game in terms of my candidacy is I spent 25 years in the banking business, and if you didn't learn to negotiate, you would never survive. So I bring together the bank and potential clients and try to bring them together with very opposite views of how things should be collateralized
and different goal lines
and structured.
Yeah, of course.
So and sometimes big egos on both sides. So you got to figure out how to find each other's happy place and move on. So so I think I could probably make that deal work out.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit.
Okay.
I have heard moaning and complaining about the infrastructure of our city. And it starts with the Obelisk, then it goes to the roundabout, then it goes to the Ross, and it goes to parking, then it goes to the new park. There seems to be a real inability for everybody to agree on what this should be. What is your vision for infrastructure here in this little town?
I believe we've been told for 9 years that as long as we built downtown, more jobs would come. As long as we built downtown, more businesses would come to the area. We've been told that for a very long time. And I would say you're bringing more housing downtown, but no businesses are coming. You're bringing more houses for downtown, but no jobs are coming. So again, you're bringing people here, but how will they stay here if you're bringing them here, if that makes sense? You have to find a way to bring the jobs back. I truly believe that a lot of the issues with the downtown infrastructure is we're not competently making developments. We just took a whole parking lot, we're going to put a hotel there. There's an existing hotel downtown already. I believe we strike deals with the people from there and take that over and make it better than what it is. Also with Unity Square, a waste of money. You took all of the handicap parking away from the elderly people who go to the library. Now we have to figure out where those people are going to park. And you're talking about putting them in a parking garage for 2 hours for free. I get it. But who wants to walk all the way from the parking garage to the library?
For the elderly with problems in transportation, it's a problem.
It's definitely a problem. And you took a large chunk of the front part of the parking lot. So we truly believe in infrastructure. We will continue to develop the city, but in a competent way. We won't strike deals that are broken deals. We know about the tax abatement. 20 years is a very long time for someone not to pay taxes to our city.
Long way.
It's a long time. So we have to make better deals. We have to not make promises to people in development and make sure that they are paying the fees that need to be paid. It's okay. We understand that you want to encourage them to come to the area. You have to cut some fees, but a lot of the fees that are being cut are just tragic.
Yeah. Infrastructure or how we're spending our money is in infrastructure is sort of a secondary thing. The primary problem is transparency. We're not having a conversation as a city as to where we want to go with a lot of this stuff. And the conversations, whether it's COVID or whatever the purpose, or whatever the cause, there has been long stretches where they have almost come to a place where they're not having public dialogue.
There's a lawsuit right now.
Oh yeah, exactly. The Open Meetings Act. But to me, we just got through the Democratic Forum and then the NAACP, and all it was talking about was needs of this community, needs of the people. And when you make a commitment to like a bonding for example, like Eastern Shore Drive, they're going to spend $5.8 million.
Right.
That is a commitment of dollars. That speaks to your values. What are you spending your money on? I don't think we need to spend $5.8 million on Eastern Shore Drive. Could we put some bike lanes in? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, bike strips, but all that infrastructure. I mean, I didn't even bring up a bad topic with putting in bike lanes. I'm sorry. But we're making a commitment, pick a number, $300,000, $400,000, $600,000 on debt service related to that we can't do something over here. So at the end of the day, I think some of these were check the box, perhaps political photo ops.
Political here?
I know, it's shocking.
Oy vey.
But for other reasons, and I think it was at the expense of the taxpayer, which we're seeing the result of with tax increases.
Yeah. Well, how do you fix that? Because a lot of those programs are either half done or on the drawing board or almost to completion, and yet I don't think that we have the adequate revenue to be able to support some of them, do we?
Well, we haven't bonded for the Eastern Shore Drive yet. We're still that's still very much in the planning. They're going to do a feasibility study, I think. And the same thing with the roundabout. They're doing a feasibility study. I just think and I think that's again part of my reason for running for mayor. It was because I bring some strong financial experience. I think the first thing we need to do is break down that budget, look at it on a line-by-line basis, go to the department heads, figure out where we get, and look at our projected expenses in the next couple of years and what we're going to have to do to stay on budget. The just a simple example I brought up last night was we spent $50,000 to do a search for a police chief with a very, very competent police chief right in place. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have interviewed other people. We ended up hiring the guy that's on the payroll. We spent another $50,000 to hire an attorney to prepare union docs that are boilerplate that our own attorney could have prepared for us for a third of that. So between those two items, it's almost $100,000. Pick a number. Let's say we could have spent 20 and saved 80. We could have bought these vans that people were talking about last night with operating costs going into the future to get them to the daycares and the after-school programs. And so that's just 15 minutes of time that we spent saving $80,000. I'm sure there's way more than that. But at the end of the day, we need to make a commitment to cost containment and revenue stability.
There is a constant criticism that the spending habits have been suspect.
Yeah.
Suspect. What do you think about the bike lanes?
I think the bike lanes were a $12 million catastrophe, especially when you're going back now and you're altering lanes, right? That means you really didn't think about the plan. They're changing a lot of them. So I really don't think that it was thought about. I think we had Seagull Century in mind. We had partnership with the county in mind. And again, Seagull Century brings a lot of revenue to the area, but that's only, one weekend?
That's one weekend
So again,
a year.
I would think about all the other weekends that it's underutilized.
Yeah.
But what I would say is it's not going anywhere. So what we have to do is allow them to make the changes, the safety changes that need to be made, and then we need to start utilizing it. I encourage citizens to come up with some sort of bike organization that we can start having monthly rides. We can talk about different topics in the community during those rides. We can have meetups on Saturday mornings and ride with the mayor or ride with the city council people. That project was a lot of money that was spent. I don't think we'll never get that money back.
Right.
And they're not going to just do away with bike lanes. No matter how much we don't like them, I think across the board, no one likes them. I just feel like we have to start utilizing them.
How expensive would it be to get rid of them?
Just as much money as we put in, we would have to,
Yikes,
to get them out. Because like I said, you're looking at the alterations. The alterations is costing us money. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And no one likes them at all.
Well, what's interesting as I found as I got into the issue was not only are not people not using them.
I never see anybody use them.
But that's a problem. We need more cyclists, or not less.
We'll import them from Guatemala. Okay.
But what's even funny, the people that are cyclists don't like them, which is weird.
I've heard that too. I've heard that
it's
too.
not just been a one-off. Several. And most of them they go to the county and ride.
They feel it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. And if you look at Vision Zero. It was brought here by de Blasio, I don't know if you knew that or not,
right.
from Sweden. And
no, I didn't know that.
Only 45 cities in the country have implemented it in any way of over 25,000 out of 17,000 cities. And it's not even it's only been in part. And it's been places like Seattle and LA and Miami, huge cities.
Cities.
Not towns like 33,000. We have enough room. I don't want to get into the psychology of a cyclist and all that stuff, but I guess what I'm saying is we are trying to apply a big city solution
to a small town.
To a problem we don't, and that's generally where we are on the infrastructure. We're trying to solve problems we don't have, and we're ignoring problems that we do have. An example: I'm restoring a house at 104 East William, 1850, cool house. It's great. It's sold actually, but in front of the house, that curb is completely shot. The place across the street got replaced because they were doing the sewer and water.
Okay.
but I got to pay half of the cost to put that new walkway, even though that's fully depreciated. After we've been paying taxes on the property for years and years, as anybody else, the prior owners had. I guess my point in all this is that we're spending all that money on infrastructure, but you're going to replace a walkway that I got to pay half of it because even though it's worn out, it's 30, 40 years old. So we're again solving problems that we don't have, not solving problems we do.
Was this an example of a dream list that came into place and really wasn't thought fully through?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not good. Okay, gentlemen, affordable housing. I hear it all the time. I know there's been a great deal of discussion and criticism of the Ross. And there's one fellow on Facebook that, for whatever reason, says that our architecture reminds him of Soviet Russia during the Cold War. Now, how he's come to that conclusion, I don't even begin to say. But affordable housing is an issue. It's something we've got to solve. How are we going to do it?
We have to have more programs or utilize the programs that are in our community, like the Salisbury Neighborhood Housing Committee.
Yeah.
We have to get with those programs and start having people get mortgages and buying homes. The rent crisis isn't going anywhere. Again, cost of materials is going up. Landlords have tons of things that they have to replace. After COVID, it skyrocketed. And we understand during COVID, landlords lost a lot of money. A lot of people weren't paying their rent during those times. So a lot of things have caused inflation. We have to truly start encouraging people to buy homes. Mortgage is a lot cheaper than rent right now.
Yeah.
And we have to utilize the first-time buyer programs that are in our community. We also have to bring developers to the area that don't just want to do high-rises. Tons of places now are just tons of apartments and you're stacking people in those. We truly believe that all single-family homes should be built in certain areas in our community where single mothers can have homes. They can have a front yard and a backyard, and we're not just cramming people into space just to say that we're providing multiple single-family homes.
Right, yeah.
That's not the... Canary Way down Berlin in Worcester County is a perfect example of a developer who went to a dead-end community and put over 30 single-family units. That same developer is in Salisbury, and they built a high-rise. That same developer, 2 different cities, 2 different asks, 2 different requests, and you're still getting results. You're getting single-family units either way. But in Berlin, they have single-family homes.
Right, yeah.
So that's the concept. We have to empower people to want more out of life instead of just throwing them together, cramming them together, and utilize the programs that's already in our community. There's tons of them. We just have to use them.
Yeah, the housing crisis is a supply-demand problem, and it has been since '08. Since the original crash. Some of the builders that didn't come back to the marketplace till well after the curve. Smart growth has slowed down the permit process, raised the cost, the infrastructure related to new construction. So it's challenging. In the city of Salisbury, we got a little bit of a unique situation. Oh, I shouldn't say it's that unique. It's like a lot of cities. We've got a fairly high percentage of rental property. So a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of broad swath of the neighborhoods aren't attractive for homeowners, but they're not necessarily even for sale either. So because of condition or the neighborhood is kind of run down. So I would see as a way to create increased supply is to create incentives for landlords to sell
right.
And incentives for people to buy and bring that back in. And that's kind of what I do. I mean, I do every day. I mean, that's what I do. I'm on my 23rd or 24th restoration in the city.
Okay.
So I buy and resell older houses that need a ton of work. And so I know it's out there and I know it exists, but we just got to create an incentive program, and I think that makes the neighborhood stronger, more invested people.
However, it is going to be difficult with mortgage rates where they are.
That's a
because
challenge.
those numbers are.
And that's more of a national issue, but I get.
Oh yeah.
And the NHS could do a role, could play a role there by doing a blended rate through a first and a second, and that sort of thing. And they do some of that now, certainly with their rehab program.
Okay. Gentlemen, I really want to thank you for coming, and you've had some excellent thoughts on some very complicated subjects.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry that our third candidate was not able and willing to join us. I also, just for a moment, would like to address what I think is a indicia of national problem, but we're seeing it here. Texts that go out regarding candidates that are absolutely false, but are derogatory and are right on the borderline of harassment when it comes to the nature of them. We don't need that here. Let's move on. Let's be civil. Let's have an intelligent conversation about politics. And let me tell you something. We just had one right here. Thank you very much. Jermichael,
Thank you, sir.
thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Randy, thank
you.
you for coming.
Thank you, Billy.
This is Billy Earl on Eastern Shore Politics. And don't remember, Del Marvelous Americana Live. Live music in Salisbury. Be there or be square. Namaste.